It's baked into people's thinking that Arsenal have a God-given right to win things. They haven't won the Premier League for the best part of a quarter of a century.
There's only so long you can get close, and not do it.
There is enough margin in the conversation for Arteta to be given another spin of the wheel. I find it very difficult to applaud Gary Neville on many things. I just think he's a bit of a pest, and I think he has too much to say on other subjects that are not really he's well versed in, and he's a hypocrite.
Is he not a bit like you, Gary, to be fair?
No.
He says what he means and means what he says. Like you, as the president of his own fan club.
No, I'm not a president of my own fan club, and I don't have agendas, and I don't constantly necessarily have to read a memo that reinforces the point that everything I say is right, even though I think it is often. I don't really.
Paris Saint-Germain delivered a knockout blow to Arsenal, and they, and not Arsenal, move into the Champions League final. Simon, when you think of it, is it deja vu for Arsenal? Has Arteta delivered a never-ending crossroads football club here? They're almost there, but not quite.
Not really, no. I mean, there was progress in lots of different fronts. We can pick the bones out of their Premier League performances this year, and we can pick the bones out of some of the things he said last night if we want to.
What about you?
And, we can look at some of the things he said. But I think that Arsenal have done wonderfully well in this tournament, can count themselves a little bit unlucky that they can't finish, because if they could have finished, then they would have done for PSG. And it wasn't just Donnarumma. I mean, David Seaman was, I listened to on a breakfast show, and he's absolutely spot on. Not that he needs my support in that clinical finishing. Declan Rice should have scored. Martinelli should have scored.
Right.
Saka categorically should have scored to bring it back to 2-2.
And yet PSG won both
PSG
times.
PSG did score. If you look at the two games, Arsenal did to PSG what PSG did to Arsenal in the first 20 minutes of the game in Paris, but they didn't score.
Right.
And that's the conundrum that they've got to overcome, because every time PSG looked like they got a meaningful opportunity, they took it.
Yeah, but that's the game. That's the name of the game.
I know it is, but the margins between the two teams is wafer thin, and I know that when you get to the very top end of sports, it is that tiny margin that makes a difference. And the question is, does Arteta have that tiny margin? And that question has yet to be answered properly. And I know that he goes off into little voyages of fantasy about the amount of points it would have taken to win a league if Basically, it hadn't been there. I think that's a load of old nonsense.
Right.
Because you win the league or you don't win the league. It doesn't matter how many points you get.
I would have thought that's a cue for you to use your usual phrase, if my aunt was my uncle. Well, no, he's not, Mikel. Actually, Arteta was questioned post-match by journalists on his assessment of the tie.
Mikel, I think you told TV, you said that there hasn't been a better team in the competition than Arsenal this season. So do you think the best team lost this tie?
I think so, yeah. Especially for 160 minutes. I'm saying that, and they are saying that because they just told me that.
Who did the PSG bench?
Yeah.
Yes, the PSG bench told them that, according to...
The PSV bench would have categorically told them that because they beat them 7-1, didn't they?
Yeah, well, according to Arteta, according to the PSG bench, the Arsenal, they thought, was a better team. So that version of events was then put to Luis Enrique.
I don't agree at all. Mikel Arteta is a great friend, but I don't agree at all. I think they played in a clever way today, and they get the match to the right moment for them because they play in the way they want and they love to play. But I think in the two legs we score more goals than them, and in football it's the most important thing. But I have to say, Arsenal, they did it great. They played a great match, and we suffered a lot. I think it's the match that we suffer the most. And I think we deserve to get the final. They are a great team as well, but I repeat, we scored more goals and we played in a great way the first leg, and the second half, it was a different match, and we could score even more goals.
You see, you could actually argue there, Simon, that Luis Enrique and not Arteta told it as it actually is.
Well, he's in a position of having won the game. I mean, we live in a world, don't we, where feelings trump facts. So there's no reason why we should question Arteta's feelings about what he thinks his team could and should have got out of those games. And directly after a game, with such disappointment, knowing he probably knows what's going to come, which is an observation of the management of his club over the last 5 years, no trophies for 5 years, besides the FA Cup that they won during COVID, and he's going to be pushing forward his best foot. I think Enrique probably... I think Arteta answered two questions. He answered a question about... I don't think he really said they were the best team in a tournament, because he went instantaneously to reference the best team in 160 minutes of this game. So I think he answered a different question, because I think it's debatable as to whether Arsenal could consider themselves the best team
I think
in the
Arteta
competition.
said they were the best team in the tie.
Yeah, I think so.
And Luis Enrique is like, well, not really.
But other media outlets have curated that into, he says they were the best team in the competition. And that's not what he said. He said he was the best team in the tie. And you couldn't argue for the best team in the competition.
Regardless of that, they're out and PSG are through.
They are. But so here's the suggestion.
So, I mean, how long do you give them?
Okay, well, is the suggestion you throw the baby out with the bathwater? So we've got a guy that's built a team up that was in a very poor nick, that's got them twice into I mean, I question the idea that you've got to win something in the end, of course.
Yeah, you always did that with Southgate.
But when you've got to a point now where you've got marked progress, you've got a guy that nobody felt that Man City were beatable when Arsenal were knocking on the door. Nobody had put Arsenal or anybody else above Man City. Man City declined, Liverpool came up. I do think they've missed an opportunity this season. I believed Arsenal would win the league this year and think they could and should have done, and maybe their transfer policy is the reasons why. And he's part of that transfer policy. He doesn't get to suggest that it was just entirely the boardroom or the sporting director that didn't give him the resources. He's part of the challenge to get the best players in there. I do think there is a limited amount of time. I think if Arsenal next year aren't bringing something. I mean, they were poor in the League Cup semi-final. Some people would say if they won the League Cup, would it make any difference? You know, people would ridicule the League Cup, but they were poor. They got battered with an inch of their life by Newcastle over 2 legs, and Newcastle gone on to win the trophy. In the Champions League, they've beaten a vanquished. Let's be clear, a vanquished Real Madrid. They're still a formidable outfit, but this is a Real Madrid side that's coming away with nothing this year. Yeah. They're not going to win their domestic league. They've lost the Copa del Rey. They got knocked out of the Champions League. They weren't the Real Madrid of years gone past. But I still think there is enough margin in the conversation for Arteta to be given another spin of the wheel, because if you're an Arsenal board member, you're looking at the fact. Let's have a look here. We've got in the Champions League. We've stable ourselves in the Champions League. We've taken ourselves deeper in the Champions League. We've got 75 million quid probably out of this tournament. So all things being equal, there's enough strength in the reasons why you'd want to give him another look at what he can achieve.
I'm just curious about the fact that you don't give him the same treatment as you gave Gareth Southgate. There's only so long you can get close, and not do it.
Oh, absolutely. But I think that I don't know if Arsenal, besides my observations of them bottling the league, which I do think they did 2 years ago, I don't think they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory the way that Southgate had opportunities. I also don't think that they weren't bold. I also don't think that they sat back and waited for the opposition to lay it upon us before we reacted to it. I don't think Arsenal went into a game against an opposition like we did against the French, waited to see what the French were going to do to us before we woke up.
But you also said that Southgate wasn't a fine margins manager. I mean, is Arteta?
I said that Southgate doesn't make decisions. He waits for things to happen. He reacts to circumstances. Everyone in the world could see goals coming against the Italians in the European Championships in 2021, and yet he waited until they scored. I don't think you can accuse Arteta of that. And also, he has a far wider resource pool in terms of the amount of players. He buys a squad of 25. I don't think anyone can argue that the squad that Arsenal have is top to bottom as good when you get rid of their first string players and get into the second. England could argue that they do.
So what is this, Klopp 2.0 or Southgate 2.0?
I don't understand the comparison.
I mean, it took Klopp 4 years to get there, to get where he wanted.
And how many finals did he lose on the way?
Oh, quite a number.
Yeah, I personally think...
Is it next year or bust for Arteta?
Well, again, it depends what happens next year. If they win an FA Cup or they win a League Cup, they win something. I think you can't keep going through seasons without winning anything if you're judging it by sporting merit. If you're in that boardroom and you're seeing the progress in your club, you're seeing young players come through your academy, seeing players like Max Dowman that are going to come through that are going to be superstars. You're seeing the blooding of young kids that are coming into this season that we've seen make first-team debuts that were stars last night. You're seeing a club that gets to a Champions League final. You're seeing the revenues uptick. You're seeing everything progress. You're going to be a little bit loath to go, baby, bathwater.
All right. are you still on the Arteta train? Again, they got so far, they got so close, but not far or close enough. And they're out this morning. So, it begs a question. Has this season crystallised your belief in Arteta, or are you beginning to waver as an Arsenal fan? Simon's alongside me here. Jason is a big Arsenal fan. Good morning to you, Jason. What do you want to say in this one?
Morning, Jimmy. Morning, lads. How are you, all right?
Good, thank you, Jason. Good to speak to you. What are you thinking?
Yeah. What I'm thinking is, mate, he's got to go. I normally ring the sports bar, so I'm first time that I've rung your show. Listen all the time. Great show. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, the time has come. He's got to go. The decision last night, we need 2 goals to take it to extra time. Yuri and Timber takes a knock. The lads put a shift in. I can't knock any of the lads for what they done last night. And then you're thinking, right, Mikel, son, let's go for it. We've got 15, 13 minutes left, whatever. And he brings on Benjamin White. Leaves in where he's sitting behind him. That's not a manager that wants to achieve or wants to try and win a cup competition or win a game.
So, Jason, you don't buy into this progress argument?
No, 5 years, mate. 700 million pound, and he's done nothing. And listen, if you can answer me, Jim, where did he manage before? Where's he come from? What the credentials? So if I go for a job, they want to know what I've done. He's managed nowhere. Listen, fair play to him. We was in a bit of a mess, but Unai Emery would have got us out of that mess. And that's another point. The team that won the FA Cup was Unai Emery's team. It wasn't even his.
Oof.
And that's what the frustrating thing is. The geezer's got to go, say thank you, out the door, freshen it up, bring a new manager in. We've got some great players at the club, and he ain't got a Scooby-Doo. He's doing me nothing. He's got to go.
Jason, what a call. Thank you for choosing us this morning. Aidan is another Arsenal fan. Do you go as strong as Jason there, Aidan?
Morning, Jim. Morning, Simon.
Morning.
No, listen, I'm a first-time caller. I have to say, these Arsenal fans are talking utter nonsense this morning. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. Mikel Arteta has done an unbelievable job at Arsenal over the last few years. The only reason Arsenal are competing for the Premier League and in Champions League semi-finals is because of him. Ultimately, it's not because Arteta isn't good enough. It's because the team isn't good enough. If you look at the team that we're competing against for the league in Liverpool, they've got Salah, Jota, Núñez, Diaz, Gakpo. That's their front line. That's
but Aidan, some might say, after £700 million spent, how come the team isn't good enough?
But that's not on Arteta.
That's fair, isn't it?
But that's not on Arteta. Arteta's not the one that's out there buying these players, spending the money. That's people like Edu. That's people above him. That's the directors at the club that are buying these players. Well,
Edu's gone now, Aidan, as you know, but Arteta obviously has a strong say in who comes in.
They're not buying him in isolation, though, are they? I mean, he was the one that obviously wanted Havertz and wanted to pay £65 million for Havertz, which Chelsea probably shipped him round in a cab. I mean, these are decisions that he would have made. He would have had enough currency and influence as a manager to have been very demonstrative about wanting a centre forward in the summer. So you do have to attribute some of the responsibility to Arteta for the team not being good enough.
Yeah. And listen, Aidan, thanks for the call and the points you've made. I'm just thinking, Simon, at the moment it stands at £700 million spent thus far. Mm-hmm. Is this moving towards a £1 billion project? With Arteta very much involved in it.
I don't think that's net spend, though, is it? So, I mean, but the bottom line is if you look at it and say, I wrote an article, I think, last year, saying that Arsenal needed to spend £250 million to stand still, which is what they duly did, and what they duly did. Because I think the battle was to re-establish themselves back as a team that competes in the Champions League on that front. And after their first season in the Champions League, I felt that they would need to spend an extra amount of money to be able to achieve it. They did spend £250 million. They did finish second, and they did not win anything. So I was proven to be right.
So how much more do they need to spend to be no longer standing still?
Well, it depends who they buy. I mean, you go buy, players at economic rates, or you buy them inflated rates and get the best outcomes. If you're going to go and buy Declan Rice for £100 million, you might be fortunate enough to buy an Andy Robertson for £8 million from another football club that ultimately gives you a really good return on your investment in terms of what you spend. Yeah. It's how they spend the money.
Yeah.
Look, we can criticise Arteta, and I've been very critical of him because I do think he mutters some things that are just incomprehensible and don't make any sense, and they're so detached from reality. Declan Rice has to score. Declan Rice scores that header in the first 5 minutes of that game. Whole different game. Whole different energy. Saka scores that open goal to go 2-2 with 5 minutes to go. PSG, we know wobble because Aston Villa wobbled them.
Yeah.
So the reality of it is that he can't legislate for Saka missing a sitter. He can't legislate for Martinelli not being clinical enough. Only thing he could have legislated for was impressing upon the board that he must have an out-and-out goal scorer.
Right.
But he wanted Havertz, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Wanted Havertz.
So many more calls coming in. We'll take a few. Trevor, big Arsenal fan. Are you still on the Arteta train this morning, Trev?
Morning, guys. Love the show.
Thank you, Trev.
Ultimately, I'm not too sure. I'm kind of on the fence because in one way, Arteta's done so much for the team. It's his first job and he's really impressed. But on the other hand, like, he spent almost 800 million in the last 5 years, and name me one big club that has kept a manager who spent that much and going trophyless for 4 or 5 years. He won the FA Cup with Wenger's team, well, Wenger and Emre's team, but yeah, you know, he spent a lot of money since, and like not even a League Cup or FA Cup. And you know, I just think the way he manages the players' fitness, like Saka, Odegaard has been in bad form recently since coming back from injury. I think Arteta could have managed him a bit better. I think, you know, his game management last night, he should have brought on the young lad, Nwaneri.
Right. So you have doubts. You have doubts, Trevor, do you, as to whether or not this is ever going to happen under him?
Yeah. I have doubts. I think this team is set up to win now.
Yeah.
Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, Saka, Odegaard. I think we need a big manager. Like, these are best-in-class players, and I think we need an elite manager to lead them to success, because it's just not happening with Arteta.
Trevor, it's a really good call. I want to thank you for it. Final caller as we move on. We will eventually leave the Arsenal situation. Quite a number of Tottenham fans getting in touch saying, excuse me, we're in a Europa League semi-final second leg tonight, looking good. Sebedy is through to us. And Sebedy, are you a Tottenham fan or an Arsenal fan? Which one?
I'm a Tottenham fan.
Tottenham fan. All right. What are you doing in amongst this chat?
I'm a little bit amused / confused by the Arteta out train.
Go on.
I mean, I coach football myself, adult football, and I find it. Watching from a Tottenham point of view, Tottenham fan point of view, seeing the way that they play, and seeing the way that Arteta is, he's passionate about the club, you know, and what he's done in such a short space of time of him being there. They talk about what £800 million has been spent.
Yeah.
But look where you're getting. You're at the top end of the table. Come down the road and come see our football week in, week out. Where it's, don't get me wrong, like, we loved Ange at first. But you know, one-sided kind of attitude and not like sticking to his guns. We watch Arsenal; it's beautiful football. And my father and I were sitting there scratching our heads like.
Tell me, you're not winding us up here, Sebedy.
Not honestly. It's. There are times that I've watched Arsenal this season. I've gone, I wish I could see that. You know, if something happens in the game, there's been changes and bits and pieces. Granted, last night, I mean, you're up against PSG.
Right. So Sebedy, you're saying really, you know, you should cherish Arteta. Oh, you Arsenal fan. That's what you as a Tottenham fan is saying.
Absolutely. In today's game, I mean, who else are you going to try and replace him with?
Well, there you go.
I mean, this is
Sebedy, thank you.
Personally, I mean, Big Ange possibly might be available this summer.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be.
I'll tell you what, take him on next year and see how you guys feel.
Interesting territory. Thank you, Sebedy.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic because if Tottenham Hotspur were sitting in a similar situation because Tottenham Hotspur spent similar amounts of money. There's been real money spent at Tottenham Hotspur, despite the criticisms of Levy.
Sure.
If Tottenham Hotspur were sitting the last 3 seasons second in the league, qualifying for the Champions League each season, and getting knocked out in the Champions League semi-final, the narrative would be very different about the outcomes. It's baked into people's thinking that Arsenal have a God-given right to win things. They haven't won the Premier League for the best part of a quarter of a century. So this idea, and prior to Wenger coming in, they were going through a period of time where their football with George Graham was dull. They brought in Bruce Rioch, wasn't great, albeit he was the architect for Dennis Bergkamp joining English football.
Right.
So there's a baked-in assumption that you judge Arsenal by the metrics of things that they've done in the past rather than the reality. If you look at it in isolation and say 3 second spots in the last 3 seasons, qualification for the Champions League, and also getting to semi-finals, I think most clubs would say well, you're not far away. And most boardrooms would say you're not far away. And I'd be surprised if any boardroom, besides the protestations of the fans, are going to sit there and go, I tell you what, we need to get rid of this fella.
Simon, you're just the man. David Ornstein, well-respected journalist, good journalist is David. A winner like us
Athletic,
at the SJAs. The Athletic, An exclusive. David Beckham and Gary Neville complete the takeover of Salford City with a new consortium. They've raised between 15 and 20 million to invest as a group targets championship within 5 years. Other class of 92 members no longer shareholders. So they will have, may not be any longer shareholders, but they may have roles at the football club. But it's all about Beckham and Neville now, who have completed the takeover of Salford City. So, I mean, to be fair to both Gary and David, you always said, it's easy with other people's money.
Well, you could be damn sure this ain't their money. They've rinsed poor Peter Lim. He's had enough of it, like a crisp packet in a microwave being crumpled up and thrown away.
He was a fella from Valencia, wasn't he?
Correct.
Yeah.
So they've used his money. So, minimum wage Neville have probably found someone else to bear the cost. But they've got a window of opportunity because they've seen what Wrexham have done. They've seen the value of star power. And that value of star power has given revenues to Wrexham via Ryan Reynolds and the other fella, that's given them the resources to be able to punch their way into the Championship. So Salford must be scratching their head thinking, hang on, we were supposed to be the big noise. We're the ones that are paid ridiculous salaries when we're in non-league football to get players that were once upon a time playing for Aberdeen, getting paid more money playing non-league football for Salford. Well, aren't we supposed to be in this position now? So also, of course, Beckham's shown the value of star power with Inter Miami. Yeah. He's been able to get a franchise as a result of the back of his deal with the Galaxy. Get everyone else to fund it, get Messi down there, and so now they're replicating this. And why shouldn't they do that? And they've got the club they've done the hard yards of building the infrastructure of a club, getting other people to fund it. Now they've got another group of people to fund it for them, I would suspect.
Do you applaud them for what they're doing here?
I find it very difficult to applaud Gary Neville on many things. But I think he's a resourceful character.
He could sit back and not bother his backside about Salford City.
Well, yeah, no, but don't think things are a reflection of you. If you've taken the task on, it's incumbent upon you, if you have a set of standards and you rate yourself, which most certainly he does, to be able to produce an outcome that's meaningful. And when you're looking at Wrexham, they must be thinking, well, that's a bit of an embarrassment.
Is he not a bit like you, Gary, to be fair?
No.
He says what he means and means what he says. Like you, as the president of his own fan club.
No, I'm not a president of my own fan club, and I don't have agendas, and I don't constantly necessarily have to read a memo that reinforces the point that everything I say is right, even though I think it is often. I don't really. No, listen, I don't mind Neville. I just think he's a bit of a pest, and I think he has too much to say on other subjects that are not really he's well versed in, and he's a hypocrite. But in the instance of Salford, I think it would be interesting now that they've seen the Wrexham model. They will have looked at Wrexham. I mean, Beckham said the other day when he went down to Birmingham about the crowds at Birmingham, he'd never seen an atmosphere like it. Now, I would say that's probably because he's been watching Inter Miami for a long time. He wouldn't have seen much of an atmosphere because I was there. It was like a morgue. But the fact is that Salford should now be in a position where they can say, well, why can't it be us?
Okay, fair enough. Neville and Beckham taking control of Salford City. The Championship playoffs kick off this evening. Bristol City against Sheffield United. Coventry hosts Sunderland tomorrow.
Brilliant games.
Simon, interestingly in this though, and you'll like this, 3 of the 4 sides in the playoff action are managed by an Englishman. Frank Lampard at Coventry, Liam Manning at Bristol City, Chris Wilder at Sheffield United. Yeah. Scott Parker in the meantime has already got Burnley up. I mean, this is good, isn't it? I mean, looking at the 4 though, who have got the best set foundations to survive in the Premier League? Bristol City have never been there.
No, which is surprising because Steve Lansdown's got inordinate amount of money. Founder of Hargreaves Lansdown, billionaire in his own rights. And I was listening to someone on the radio say Bristol City haven't been in the playoffs for 17 years. Of course, the last time in the playoffs, they beat my team.
Right.
So I remember that with no fond memories.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that a city of the size of Bristol City, with an owner the kind of wealth that he's got, haven't achieved Premier League status at any time during their history. So you look at that and say, okay, Sunderland, you've got the young kid in there that's had his dad's money, but ultimately Sunderland are back in the groove now. They're back in the situation where those bad days, I think, are behind them.
Yeah.
But you look at Coventry and you look at Sheffield United. Wilder's obviously indexed to Sheffield United. He's come through Sheffield United as a fan to two stints of management. The old adage was the team that goes in with momentum which is often the team that gets in the playoffs at the last knockings, wins the playoffs. That's been changed over the last 3 years. It tends to be the team that finishes third, and some would say, well, that's due merit, that's due process, because they're 25 points or 22 points ahead of the team that finished sixth.
Right.
I mean, if I were backing somebody, I'd back Sheffield United, but my nose tells me, for reasons that I cannot explain, and it might be because I want for them, it will be Coventry. I think they were unlucky last year. I mean, how they didn't win that FA Cup semi-final is just injustice in its own right.
Yeah.
And whether Doug King has landed and done and must think football's relatively easy because they've seemed to have success every single season. He took a bold decision. Frank has proven himself at this level. Frank, I don't think, had anything to prove at this level. Frank has something to prove at the elite level, but he'll have it if he gets Coventry out of the division. It's done before. Dowie did it with me. Roy Keane did it at Sunderland. It's been done before, where you take a team that's struggling in a season and turn them into a promotion team. Yeah. But it is a wonderful way to get promoted. It's a wonderful set of English fixtures. To me, it's one of the most important games in English football, because it's the have-nots getting a real window towards the haves. The energy. And remember that playoff semi-final between Leeds and Derby a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and there was all the Spygate nonsense in the background. Yeah. Frank was part of that. But the atmosphere, the level of intensity between the two clubs.
What's the best story here? What's the best story, narrative-wise, as to who goes up?
Coventry, I think. I mean,
reasons you've just described.
I think so.
Not Bristol City for the first time.
Well, I'm not a big fan of Steve Lansdowne, so I'm not going to find much in that one.
That's because you insulted him.
Well, I may well have done. Yeah. It was a well-deserved insult.
And assault.
Anyway, look, you look at it and say, Sheffield United, because there's all great narratives. Sheffield United, because they went down so badly last year, and Chris Wilder, whatever I may have thought of his conduct in the past, and if he comes out of the nosedive that they put themselves into and wins the playoffs, it means that they've been able to turn it around. If Sunderland can get through, they've lost their last 6 games. They've got no momentum. So you look at all of these, have got a story, but I think probably the most media-centric story would be Frank.
Tonight, Manchester United go in against Athletic Club, 3-0 up from the first leg. And that is live in talkSPORT. Tottenham Hotspur, under Ange Postecoglou, go into the second leg of their tie over in Norway against Bodo Glimt, 3-1 up from the first leg. So, Simon, before we hear from Amorim and Postecoglou, complacency, is that the only thing set to stop an all-English final?
Plastic pitches might help. Over in Norway. I mean, it does tell you a story. You've got two teams that are stinking out the Premier League that are now going to potentially win a competition, the second-tier competition in Europe. It tells you a little bit about that competition and how the other sides are in it are competing. Look, I mean, United have done the hard yards. It's a brilliant result to have got the result. No one saw that one coming. And so, yes, not complacency, just not paying attention to detail and making sure that they do the job that they're paid for. And losing Maddison for Spurs is a loss. But Spurs have shown you, irrespective of the fact they've conceded a goal, 3-0 would have been a done deal. 3-1 opens the door, and because it's Spurs, like Postecoglou alludes to, there's always a controversy or a bigger noise around it. It's, it's well within their gift. They've done it to Eintracht Frankfurt to be able to close the game out when they went over to Germany. They can do it against this Norwegian side. It should be an English final. Absolutely should. It's not being disrespectful. It's not taking people casually. The hard yards has been done, certainly by Manchester United. Now, let's not hope that Man United don't suffer from their current curse of freezing in front of their own crowd and not rewarding the 73,000 that go to Old Trafford rather than the 5,000 or 6,000 that may have gone to Spain.
Right.
So, no, I think both teams will do their jobs.
Let's hope so. So, going into this, we heard from Ruben Amorim, who, to say the least of it, even with 3-0 of a first leg aggregate lead, slightly wary of what lies ahead.
If you look at our season, anything is possible. So we have to understand that one goal can change everything, the momentum of the game. One sent off, you saw it 1 week ago. If you look at our team, we cannot control, we cannot say today what is going to happen. There are some teams in any league that can understand the game is going to be like this, can change a little bit, but the story is going to be like this, and we can control the narrative of the game. We cannot do that. Even during the game, we are one team, something happen, and we lose our mind a little bit. But we are improving the way we play. We are more confident, and we are ready to face this challenge. You have to see the quotes in the moment, so things can change. And for me, in that moment, and if you look to Premier League, I think we are the worst. Since I arrived, we are the worst team in terms of the results in Premier League. That is my idea. In the end of this season, we can be the worst team in Premier League in history with a European title. So we will not change nothing. We know that this season was really disappointed for everybody. Nothing is going to change. So in that moment, sometimes I have to think a little bit more, but I felt that, and I still feel that this season was the worst in the, I don't know in history, but for sure in the last, 50 years, I don't know. I have no idea.
You know, I listened to that. I noticed you leaning forward and getting right into that, and I was doing the same, Simon. I like Amorim, but I am just not sure where he's going with that. We're not able to control our narrative. Sometimes we lose our minds. All that's missing there is, so prepare yourself.
He's not doing that. What he's saying, it's not my team. It's not my team. And probably what he's saying, when you actually distill it rather than look for the click out of it, rather than look for the sensationalising of it, what he's saying is, it's not my side. I can't guarantee what outcomes are because I have no control over the destiny of this team right now. I don't trust the team because I haven't built this team. It doesn't reflect what I want from it. So that's what he's really saying. Now, he gets himself into cul-de-sacs when he talks about things like he probably is right to give the analysis, this is the worst team achieving something in Europe right now. It's not the worst team to ever won a European title because they finished 14th in the league, which they might do. West Ham won the European Conference League when they were 15th. So there's resonance in what he's saying. Whether people want to hear it or not, or whether he understands the ramifications of his words. I listened to it. My first reaction when I first listened to it is, I'll pack it in. I'm getting fed up with you saying things that are not necessary. Yeah. And then I listened to it again, and I think, actually, when you distill it down and take your feelings out of it and go, well, you're not wrong. It's not his side. This team is not able to control the narrative of a game because they're not good enough yet. They're not forged in his image. And he's making that point, labouring that point, subconsciously and subliminally to people, that this is not my side.
But say it implodes tonight, and Manchester United seriously,
he doesn't think it's going to implode
screw
tonight.
up. But say they do. All he needs to do post matches is say, "Yeah, I told you we'd do that because we're crap."
No, he won't do that. He can't do that. He can't do that. He can't get away with that because that's not what he said. What he's saying is, I can't get. If you're not my team. If you ask him about,
I don't know what these
if you
guys
ask him
will
about
do.
his previous club and say to him, "Can you tell me how this game's going to go?" He'll tell you how that game was going to go because he knows those players, he knows the system, he knows what he's got in place. All of them are put in place by himself. This team, he's looking at it going, I don't know what it can do. I don't know what it can't do. It can one moment do something brilliant, and another moment do something completely incoherent. But it's because it hasn't been honed into my team.
Yeah, no, but he's not getting away with one there because he can still be hugely tactically adept. It's not my team, but by God, they know what they've got to do in the night.
But he was saying,
because I've drilled it into them, and we are 3-0 up.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that he what he wants to do with his side against what he has to do with his side are two different things. So what he wants to do with his side is he wants to shape them in a certain way, know what they're going to do, and if someone's better, they beat us because they're better, not because we aren't capable of operating at a certain level. He's basically saying we're not capable of operating at a certain level. So it doesn't matter what information I give them. It doesn't matter. Of course, if they go into this game and they throw it away, he must be on the hook for the outcome, not giving it, not the Man United, well, not people criticising him.
Yeah,
it can't have the Man United fans. There's not going to be Man United fans cheering his name if at half time they're 3-0 down to Atletico Bilbao. So it won't be going to Amorim. That's great. We like the fresh air that he's given us.
So what you're saying is pre-match he can run the "this is not my team" case. Post-match, if it blows up in his face and they go out, if he runs that, should he run that?
Well, it depends how it happens, how it manifests itself in front of him. The job is done. If you want to snatch defeat...
Should be.
Man United went over there and beat them 3-0. People would say, well, if the United can do it over there, they can do it over here.
Yeah.
But the advantage has been taken. This is not the first game of the rubber. So that ultimately, the psychological effects of a 3-0 drubbing at home will be visited on the away side coming into Old Trafford. He is simply reinforcing the ideal that you cannot assess this team. I cannot tell you what I'm going to get right now.
But that's a crazy situation.
Well, no, he's
on the eve of the second leg.
It's one that
he's European semi-final.
Well, it depends what messaging you think you want to have your manager impart. Ultimately, his job is to manage the media the way he sees fit.
Yeah.
And so he sees fit to manage it this way. Now, whether we think that's right or wrong...
Are you having that?
I'm ambivalent because I'm not a Man United fan. I think the job is done. I think he talks too much. But then there's an element of he's the Man United manager. He can't be a mute. He can't do everything by semaphore. He's going to have to say certain things. But I look at it from the point of view, I think some of the things he said, I mean, when he turned around and says things that he said in the past is the worst team of Manchester United's history, then he comes back and says, I'm a young manager. That's when I don't have him. Pack it in. You're the man of Manchester United.
Right.
Don't bring your age into it. You're either good enough. If you're good enough, you're old enough. So pack the age bit in, right? And that's a silly conversation that you make. But we're going to see. I will only judge Amorim when he's able to be supported in the sun. They've got to support him. Otherwise, what are they doing? So he's got to have a change up. And we'll see how bold, how brave, and how sophisticated he is during the season, because he clearly. The argument is probably relatively solid. He didn't want to come in when he came in. He wanted to come in when he wanted to come in. And that's not how it works. His job was to make it better, not make it worse. He's been given latitude. The Man United fans think it's a breath of fresh air to be told some truth. This is crap. We know it's crap, but you should be making it better, not worse, to be able to prove your point that it's crap in the first place.
Right. We're going to touch on Spurs before we hit the break, because many Tottenham fans are saying, enough of United and Amorim. Talk about us. We will. Postecoglou wasn't really having Arsene Wenger's suggestion this week that UEFA should look at a rule change regarding the Europa League winners getting a place in the Champions League. With remember, Tottenham and Manchester United potentially being a recipient of that carrot, despite sitting 15th and 16th, respectively, in the league. And Postecoglou going into this game in Norway had a little nibble at Arsene.
Well, I mean, that's a debate that's been raging for years, mate. Like, at least the last 8 days. I've never heard that before. So, I've said it before, mate. Spurs does crazy things to people. It does. It does. You put that club into any sentence or any issue, and invariably they all come out and try and diminish as much as they can. Why wasn't it an issue before and it's an issue now? What's the difference? I don't understand what the difference is. The competition. Last year, fifth didn't get you into Champions League. This year it does. What does that mean? There were competition rules, and the rules say the winner goes into... And it's not the first year, and there is an asterisk against it that you have to do something else as well. But it's Spurs, mate. They love it. They love it. Oh, they love it. You love it.
Former Arsenal manager.
Well, you know, I don't want to go down that road because I've got a great respect for Arsene. He's one of the legends of the game. But it does crazy things to people, mate. I love it. I love it. Bring it on.
Bring it on. Has it made Ange crazy?
Especially you, Ange, yeah. I mean, it's not an unreasonable question. You stink in the league, and so do Man United. And so for you two teams to get a passage into the Champions League, it's funny how Martin Keown's dad, Arsene Wenger, seems to see things so clearly in terms of how Arsenal played last night and how the Champions League shouldn't be formulated with Europa Leagues, but didn't see things when he was a manager at Arsenal. I mean, I think he's right. I think there is a question about the reality whether Europa League should qualify for the Champions League, but this is the rules. And for Ange, at least he's smiling. At least he's not growling and more relaxed. Yeah. But it is babbling nonsense that he comes out with at times, because the question is being put on the toes of Tottenham and Man United because you stink in the league.
Okay, so that said, who do you trust less tonight? Tottenham or Manchester United? West Ham reportedly concerned that Paqueta may not be in a fit state of mind to play again this season. Now, of course, we know what's going on with him. Paqueta is currently under investigation by the FA. He was charged by the organisation almost a year ago for betting breaches and spot fixing. The FA charges state that Paqueta tried to, quote, influence the progress, conduct, or any other aspect of or occurrence in these matches by intentionally seeking to receive a card from the referee for the improper purpose of affecting the betting market in order for one or more persons to profit from betting. Now, of course, he strongly denies the allegations. Paqueta's wife, Duda Fournier, posted an emotional defence of him after Sunday's match, stating, "People don't realise it's been 2 years of hell." And of course, in that match, Paqueta, this was against Tottenham on Sunday, Paqueta himself seemingly broke down in tears after being booked by Michael Oliver. Now, post-match, Graham Potter spoke about that.
No, I think it's just a player that's just trying his absolute best and wants the situation to be better, and probably got a bit frustrated with the action, and then you see a human being being probably not perfect, but I love Lucas. He's given everything, and difficult circumstances he's in as well. So, but he's given everything, and.
Well, after that booking, Paqueta was subbed 5 minutes after it, and he went straight down the tunnel. And the investigation into him by the FA currently goes on. So his wife is very upset on his behalf. Potter talking about Paqueta there. Sammy, I mean, can you put time limits on investigations, or do you have to have the approach it takes as long as it takes? I mean, when you think of it, a year on, and nothing has happened.
Well, we have to ask ourselves why. What is taking the time? Is it the investigation, or is it the manner in which the legal construct of his defence is being put forward, and a variety of objections to various things that might be coming from the defence side of things? I will feel sorry for this player if these charges prove to be spurious.
Of course.
If they don't...
Do you have sympathy for him at the moment?
Well, I would assume, and it might be a wrong assumption, that they must have very compelling evidence to want to bring such a charge, because it can't be just on the basis of hearsay, because hearsay wouldn't allow them to be in a position where they, A, can bring the charges, and B, make observations about wanting a worldwide lifetime ban. I think that's the sort of observations that are being spoken about.
Yeah.
So I think they must be on relatively solid footing to say that, because there's no need for hyperbole in this situation. If they had nothing, absolutely nothing, I'm not sure whether the process allows for it, but if you've got a case that you're facing, I've had it levied against me once, which is an observation about my book. I was taken to court by somebody over things that they didn't like that I had written about in my book.
What? And you faced legal action?
And but they were struck out. They didn't get. Everyone says that an Englishman is entitled to have his day in court, right? But not if you've got a spurious case. And this person spent hundreds of thousands of pounds to get to a point where his case wasn't even heard because it was struck out, because it had so little meaning to it.
Did it affect you in any way emotionally?
No. But the point I'm about to make is that if there was no substance to this particular observations, there must be a mechanism where Paqueta's legal team could have cut through this and go, you've got no basis for this. You've got no substance behind this. This is not even grounded in anything that's vaguely resembling a meaningful set of observations. This doesn't even get to hear the light of day. So I'm comparing it to a legal process, and I'm wondering if there's something of that nature. Without wanting to fall on either side of observation about whether he's guilty or not guilty, seed my thought process in the fact there must have some substantial evidence. If he is an innocent man, then I would imagine that it's troubling, because, if you go to prison and you're sat in a prison cell for 20 years for something you didn't do, the torment that must have upon you.
Sure.
If he's a guilty man, then I have less empathy for him.
Yeah.
But we are in a situation where he has put himself in the way of something, and he has to take account for that. And I would suspect that the reasons why this is taking so long, I make this argument, I know how long it takes to get things done.
A year and a half here.
Well, this is my point. I dragged somebody into the High Court with one of the most difficult cases to prove. I got Dowie, and I got them there in 9 months, right, through the legal system. And I wanted it quickly, and I pushed for it because I believed that I had a compelling argument. This is the reasons why I never understand the protestations of Manchester City, and I don't understand why, if I'm Paqueta and I've got all the resources that I've got, plus a football club that would probably support me economically, why I wouldn't want to make sure I drag these people kicking and screaming to the first available date to concentrate their minds on the reality of the ramifications of what's happening to my career as a result of their ruminations.
So you're saying here, Paqueta's legal team need to get this thing going?
Well, I'm saying if
he's innocent.
I'm saying there must be a reason why these 2 years of torment that people refer to has been allowed to drag on. Because I'm pretty damn sure that the economic resources he has available to him and the support structure that the football club have put behind him, because he's an inherent asset, which, by the way, would have strutted out the door to Man City if he could have done, which would have suited him better, and West Ham's only reward for that would have been a bag of cash. So let's get the confected moral sympathy out of the way and look at the reality of it and say, why is it taking so long? We know why the Man City case has taken so long, because Man City have pushed it back into the long grass, argued about every single panel construct, and made it a more convoluted process. They'll turn around and say, with the Man City example, it's because why shouldn't we? Why should we be cooperative? You're innocent. You've got conclusive evidence. If Paqueta's innocent, I nearly put Arteta in the equation there. If Paqueta's innocent, then you would want to think that he would be on the front foot, screaming and shouting via his legal representation, this is affecting my career.
Yeah.
And of course, if he wins this case, you'd like to think there's some significant compensation available to him.
Sure. In the meantime, Paqueta, of course, denies any wrongdoing.